Hello everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing Unstoppable. Just finished watching it. I have seen this one before. I believe it was originally released in 2010. You know the drill. I will read you the overall, just the producers and the directors, the description of the movie, and then after that I'll give you my overall impressions and grade. After that, you're going to want to shut off the movie if you want to watch the movie or not watch the movie based on my recommendation. Then you're going to want to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot as well as character development. Similar movies are major themes. We actually do have a major theme for this one. The sequel just came out and it wasn't as good as the first one. But it says, when a massive unmanned locomotive roars out of control, the threat is more ominous than just a derailment. The train is laden with toxic chemicals, and an accident would decimate human life and cause an environmental disaster. The only hope of bringing the train to a safe stop is in the hands of a veteran engineer, Denzel Washington, who is Frank Barnes in the movie, and a young conductor, Chris Pine, who is Will Coulson in the movie, who must risk their lives to save those in the runaway's path, inspired by true events. So again, always like some truth to it. And I'm not sure where this is in Stanton, Pennsylvania, but it says it was inspired by the 2001 CSX 8888 incident in which a runaway train ultimately traveled 66 miles through northwest Ohio. And also, it's based off Ohio. But obviously the sequel just hit East Palestine, Ohio, and we know what happened on that one. So we had 2 train derailments in Ohio. So I was looking through some movies to find some more content to create. And what's that? Oh, a train derailment. So the major themes of trains derailing. This seems really relevant to our culture right now today. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I thought the tension build is extremely well done. I think the character development, like I said in the past couple ones, you have the good guys and the bad guys. You do have some change in character, or at least relationships of the characters that I enjoyed in this one, specifically between Frank and Will. Again, the tension build, production. It's only an hour and 34 minutes, so it was very enthralling as opposed to one of the shorter movies I've watched recently. So thoroughly enjoyed it. I like the tension. I liked it just being it's a thriller action as opposed to just like a crime thriller or something. So it was a different switch up for me. I like the script. I hadn't seen it before, but thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm going to give it a solid A. I think it's really well done. The content material is nice, the tension build is nice, and the relationship development is nice as well. So if you've not seen the movie and would like to watch it based off the reading, what do we have on the 3.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd, still whatever that is. 78% liked this movie on Google, 87% liked it on Rotten Tomatoes, and 6.8, rounded up to a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. But I certainly thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a good thriller action movie as opposed to just a crime drama or something. So, if you've not seen it and you want to watch it or not watch it based on my recommendation, there will be plot synopsis and character development now. So you open up the movie, Will Coulson is in his bed, he's waking up, clocking in for work. I think he has like initial meeting with either like a lawyer or just some other dude. But basically he's having some legal issues with his wife, Darcy Coulson. So he goes to the train yard, he initially has some tense interaction. Frank Barnes is rather... as opposed to like Denzel's character in what was that one with the one where which one did I just watch? Oh, the Training Day. His character there, this one he's a lot more jovial, a different movie, but he was just like the new guy coming in to meet the senior dude or the person that's going to train him or whatever. So Frank Barnes' characterization is a lot more warm and jovial. He's strict, he knows his business, but he's a lot more friendly than his characterization in Training Day. And so Frank meets, Will approaches Frank, they're at the rail yard. He's like, who's Frank? He's like, I'm right here. He has some tense interactions, calling it people like the older rail yard dudes are like, we don't want to babysit, and Will is like, I don't want to work at a retirement firm or something. So as you have some tense interaction again about the new guy, these are union workers, so they're worried about losing their jobs to somebody that's underpaid or makes less than them on the pay grade, and so it just kind of blue collar interactions about job pay and job stability. So regardless, they get on the train and they start doing their jobs. So you have kind of two timelines. It's all happening at once, but two timelines kind of converging. And so while Frank and Will are getting accustomed to one another and getting their work started, you have Dewey, who's played by a definitely well-known dude. I remember from like Friday Night Lights or whatever. Ethan something. But him and T.J. Miller, who's Galassi. Ethan Suplee. But so Dewey's kind of like this aloof train worker, but not like overly dumb. But basically, they have to move this train so they can clear it because there's a school coming for like a field trip or something. And so they go to move this train. Dewey is like, I'm not sure. He has to like flip the switch or something, and I don't know trains. So he doesn't. They're in a rush, so they don't enable the air brakes. And then he has to like flip the switch to like switch the siding or the main rail. And so he jumps out and goes to switch the lever, and he's kind of fat, so he doesn't really get it done in time. And then the train just kind of like rolls away. And all the other people in the train are laughing and clapping at him like it's not going to be a big deal. And he also had like left not only did he left he didn't leave it in neutral because they call it a coaster, just a train that's unmanned that's just going along the railway, but he actually put it in throttle or something. So that's going on, but they're not. It's not super serious at the beginning because there's a lot of fail switches that are supposed to be in place to help the train stop, and they're just not aware that those haven't been done yet. And so you have Connie, who is kind of like the regional director. You have another, like a train safety guy that comes in. I kind of recognize him off of the character list. But they're running this thing in Stanton, Pennsylvania. You have more of the corporate side with Oscar Galvin. I don't know, in New York, but just not on the ground in Stanton, Pennsylvania. And so then you have the actual owners of the business on the golf course. So that's just kind of like the corporate structure or the character relationships. And so Frank has two daughters, Maya and Nicole Barnes. They work at Hooters. Will and Frank kind of laugh about that. Frank is on Will about getting stuff done. They have to stop. And like add some more cars to their train. And so when he's doing that, Will's on his phone again about this Darcy. You learn his wife has a restraining order against him. You don't really learn that till later, but he's on the phone with like this lawyer or somebody in the family in the know that's talking about the hearings or whatever. Because he's at work and the hearing got moved up and now he can't make it or something. But while Frank gets on Will about, put down the phone, let's get on the train, and let's get back to work. And so once they do that, Frank notices that the train is too long, and so Will had added like 5, 6, 7 extra cars to the train that he wasn't supposed to. And so at this point, again, you have Connie, Dewey, Galassi, Oscar Galvin, and this like safety dude. Very quickly they learn that it's in throttle, that the air brakes are dislocated, and they kind of have a couple options of where, Stanton, Pennsylvania, I think it's a population like 725,000-ish, but they get into a situation where it's like, what are our measures to stop this thing from happening? And you also have another kind of like a Wild West looking character, but Ned Oldham, who's just like part of the rail crew. But he's kind of just like, he's not one of the rail workers, but he's like a safety prevention dude, or he has different dress on than the other railroad workers. But he's in the mix something, and he plays a major role as well. And so the school bus, or this field trip, they're learning about trains, and so basically this, I don't know how many cars it is, but 40-car train is going on the wrong way, unmanned and accelerating, and there's a school train with school kids on it coming towards them. So the kids think that, like, in the movie, they think it's like a part of the tour of the facility is having this train, because the car's coming. The first interaction is, head on with the school kids, and they have siding where you just go to a different track. And so they barely side the car with the school children on it. And so the school kids aren't aware of that, but then the steam really starts to pick up of, what are we going to do to stop this train? And so the corporate's doing risk assessment. Frank and Will kind of hear about it over the intercom, just like the communications things for the train traffic controllers, and so they're farther down the main line, but going directly at the train. And so in Frank and Will, they have some tension back and forth, but once they haven't solidified their goals yet. Regardless, the first thing they tried to do is to stop it is, well, first there's like a truck carrying a horse like stops on the train tracks, and then the train just barrels through and wrecks the whole thing. And so you start to get the news people on station, the corporate is not making statements, but all of the news is starting to pick up there's a runaway train. And so the first thing they try to do is they try to just have someone get into the cockpit. So what they do is, or they have a train try to get in front of it and slow it down. And so you have a veteran train conductor, Judd Stewart. He gets in the train in front of the runaway. He kind of tries to slow it down. At the same time, you have a helicopter trying to lower on this Marine, 22-year-old Marine, to try to get onto the train and get into the conductor's booth and manually shut off the train. And so the Marine, he gets on top of the main conductor car, and then they have some collision, and he gets smashes through the back of of another train car. So he's injured. He doesn't die, but he has to get taken away by the helicopter, and it's a failed mission. Fortunately for Ned Oldhelm, because it didn't work and he didn't get into the conductor thing, and he's in front of the train, his train gets pushed off of the track by the bigger runaway train, and that kills Ned. So I believe he's the only fatality in the movie. But he dies, and now they're really trying to figure out, well, what do we do? What's our next play? And so at this point, it's been Connie at first, who was again like the local regional director. She was for derailment when we had some rural Pennsylvania places where it wouldn't cause a big problem. At this point, the train is crossed. Like there's just small town or more populated towns. So Connie is now against derailment. And Will and Frank are going head on at the runaway train, but they have some siding that they're supposed to get into, but they can't get into it because Will had connected extra cars. And so Frank, again, he's the 28-year-old veteran of the rail yard, so he's making a lot of intuitive calls, and Will's like, no, do this, and make... Will's the actual conductor, Frank's the engineer, but Frank has the experience. He's like, we wouldn't fit into here, and they're like, we need another rip track, so they go a little farther down the thing. They literally go head on with the runaway train. They get about 10 cars or whatever. They get enough of their train into this rip track, whatever that is, as opposed to a siding or whatever. And the runaway train, hits the 10th car, but Frank and Will are saved. And then the traffic controllers are like, yeah, you guys would not have fit. Good call, Frank. And so at this point, you start to hear that they're abandoning or evacuating this part of this town. And you learn that they're going to try to have this like portable derailleur. And so again, Frank is on the phone. He kind of intuits that, figures that out. But kind of at this point, Frank's like, what if we took away all of our cars and we went in reverse and hooked up and latched onto the other car and tried to slow down the train that way? Because at this point, the train is now approaching the S-curve in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which has a bunch of fueled things around it, and it's a very populated area and would cause huge death and suffering and damage. And so Frank and Will and Connie, they all get told by Oscar Galvin they would be fired if they go after it, and they're all kind of wanting to go for it. And then Frank Barnes was like, you already fired me. You gave me my 90 notice 72 days ago. And he's like, Oscar's like, well, why would you risk your life for us? He's like, well, I'm not doing it for you, because now it's more of like, again, the natural disaster type of thing. We're all going to unify together and kind of try to come together. So again, that type of tonality or just development is always interesting to me. And so at that point, you really have Will Coulson. He's like, Frank's like, you can get off if you want, but I'm going for it. And Will's like, I'll go for it. And Connie's like, I'll go for it. So they all kind of come together as fuck Oscar Galvin, and we're gonna go after and try to save our town. And so at that point, the goals of Frank, up to that point there was some tension. Again, the old guy, young guy, new guy taking old people's jobs, Will making mistakes. Frank is genuinely, in this movie, his characterization is pretty jovial, does his hard work, but he's not like aggressive or mean or anything like that. And so they all come together at this point, and Frank is not entirely sure he's 100% sure that the portable derailleur won't work because of the size and speed of the train. And they start going after the train in reverse. And so the train does absolutely plow through the train. Well, at first they try to shoot it. They try to shoot with live rounds, try to shoot an emergency stop button that's by fuel tanks, and then they're quickly cease fire. And so at that point, the last hope before this S-curve is if they can slow it down by Frank and Will going in reverse. And so they speed up to the train, they get up there, they have trouble latching onto the train. Will gets his foot seriously injured, he has to manually go out there and couple the thing. So he gets his foot injured in that exchange, but he gets the thing latched on, almost falls off the train, gets back up into the conductor booth, and now they're basically have just like a 1-car train and, 40 cars going the other way. And they're trying to slow it down enough to get it through this S-curve in Scranton. And so they succeed at doing that. They have to pump the brakes. Frank takes some advice from whoever the character was that's like advising this independent security advisor guy. It's like, alternate braking and acceleration. So they do that. They get the speed down a little bit, and then the brakes on their train that they're driving the other way, the brakes blow out, so they can't do that anymore. They were getting to the speed where it was going to be safe to go through the S curve, and they're a mile away, and now it's speeding back up, and they're not sure if it's going to work. And so Frank jumps out, or Will has the idea to manually put on the brakes on each individual car. Well, Will is now injured, so Frank goes out there and does it. He's running across all of the tops of the trains, manually shutting off as many as he can, or braking as many as he can, as fast as he can. And so during that, their brakes blow out, and so it starts to speed back up while they're doing that. And then they have like some independent brake that Will is supposed to like manually crank, and Frank tells him when to do so. He does so, and then they slow down just enough to get through the S curve. It kind of leans up and then falls back down, but they're not out of the woods yet. So big celebration there. Now the whole town's watching. Maya and Nicole Barnes, again, they're working at Hooters on their shift. Everyone's watching the news. Darcy, once they come together and they're going backwards, Will tells Frank about what happened with Darcy. Basically, he thought Darcy was texting some dude from high school, and turns out she was just texting her sister-in-law, and he reached for her, didn't hit her, and so there's a restraining order because he had approached a cop with a gun or something. And so that's the legal thing with his wife she's trying to figure out. And you learn that about halfway or 75% away through the movie. And so through the S-curve, but they still have to slow down the train. And Frank comes to a train car where he can't jump up to get to the front of the train conductor booth. So then you have the train conductor that died is Judd Stewart. Ned Oldham is just like this Wild West kind of character, or just blue collar kind of character that has this big truck, and Connie had told him to follow the train or keep eyes on it or something. And so he comes out of nowhere with not out of nowhere, but he comes with a big police escort, and he gets up to Will, and Will jumps in the back of the pickup truck, and the pickup truck speeds up to the front of the train, and then Will, with his injured foot, makes a heroic jump, lands on the conductor train, is able to get into the front conductor booth and shut down the train. So you have big celebrations. The town is super relieved. You have a press conference. Ned's rambling on a little bit. And it's based on a true story. That's pretty much the end of it. But I like the emotional development. The tension and suspension throughout the piece was extremely well done for me. But Will and Darcy are now back together. Frank is reindicted with his daughters. And he gets get ending credit screens of Frank got promoted, Will got promoted, Connie got promoted to Oscar's job, and Dewey was working in the fast food industry. So overall, I thought it was a really good mix-up as opposed to just a crime drama. I thought the tension and the thriller aspect was extremely well done. I like the characterizations of this. And Will Coulson, it's not really... the relationship between Will and Darcy is kind of insecurity, but it's not really part of the plot. So I thought the characterizations were well done. I really liked it when Will, Frank, and Connie all kind of come together. As we're just going to try to come together and stop a natural disaster or man-made disaster, but not like a criminal aspect or something. And so the major theme was obviously the train derailment. We've definitely seen the sequel in East Palestine, and they didn't stop that one. That one just blew up. And so thank you for watching my movie review of Unstoppable, and I will see you on the next one.